All right, welcome back, guys. I am so excited. Every time I bring Kian on, I'm excited to bring back my friend Kian Golzari. How are you, mate?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me. It feels like a while since we've done an episode, so it's great to be back. And thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for finding time. You're so busy. You're like a celebrity now. So thank you for not forgetting me and still going on here. All right, we're going to be speaking about Canton Fair today. In April, we did an episode together. I think it was in April, just before April, about the last Canton Fair, which was the first one back before since COVID. And now we're going to do another one about Canton Fair 2023. So excited for that. For anyone who lives under a rock and doesn't know who you are, Kian, do you want to really quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name is Kian Golzari. How's it going? Hope you're well. I've been living and working in China since 2010. In that time, I've designed, developed, sourced, and manufactured over 2,500 products, visited more than 500 factories, and attended more than, I think, 23 Canton fairs now. And that's led me to work with a lot of different brands, retailers, licenses, such as the NBA, Olympics, United Nations, Ministry of Defense, a lot of big box retailers in UK, Europe, and the US, as well as a lot of Amazon and Shopify private label sellers. But most recently, I started working a lot in the crowdfunding industry as well. So I do some projects with Kickstarter and Indiegogo projects, which I'm quite excited about as well.
Yeah, that's we got to do another episode about that at a different time. I want to hear
For
more
sure.
about that. That's super
That's a different
exciting.
level of that's like a different level of product development, because the cool thing about the crowdfunding industry and why I really like it is that all the products are highly innovative, and they're products which have never been done before, and they're products which solve problems. So if you can create a product for that industry, it requires like problem solving at the highest level, like molds, toolings, and things like that, and innovation. So it's really cool. We should definitely do another episode on that.
We have to. We have to. Okay, so Canton Fair, October 2023. I think that we should start first for anyone who doesn't actually know what the Canton Fair is. Do you want to give a really quick, explanation to what the Canton Fair is?
Sure, yeah. So the Canton Fair is the largest import-export exhibition in the world. There's over 26,000 exhibitors there. It goes over 3 phases. It's in a city called Guangzhou, China. The conference where this exists, or the exhibition, is probably the size of an international airport, maybe bigger. And it has halls for every single product category you can imagine. It's very well organized in terms of like all the bag suppliers are together, all the giftables are together, all the pet suppliers are together. So like if you're going after a specific category or niche, they're all there together as well. It's where I feel I've made the best strides in my business, like since like 2010, just being able to look and feel and see and touch the products and meet the suppliers and take samples away with you. And you can really fast track your business by going there. So I'm super excited to be going back and to be discussing about it as well. Yeah, so it's gonna be really cool.
Awesome. So before we kind of get into some stuff specifically for this Canton Fair, I asked you this on the last episode, and I'll ask you this every single time because I think it's something that's important. What is the biggest advantage of attending the Canton Fair versus, for example, doing what I do, which is up till now sourcing online using, sourcing agents, Alibaba, etc., but not physically being in China and also not attending the Canton Fair. So what's the biggest advantage? Why should people be doing this, going to the Canton
Ooh.
Fair?
So there's quite a few different things to unpack here, right? I would say in no particular order, they're all very important. One would be like building relationships with suppliers, in that like to have that sort of face-to-face conversation and get to know them as a person, and see who you align with and who has similar values to you. Be able to go out for dinner together and sort of see them one day, take some samples, take it back to the hotel, go back the next day, have another further conversation, go out for a coffee. Like those things you just can't do. And it's so important for us to trust and know who we're working with. But same for the suppliers as well. Like I just posted a YouTube episode where I interviewed some of my suppliers that I met at the Canton Fair, and they were telling that to me, to say that it's so good to have the Canton Fair back, because the last one we did was the first one back after 3.5 years. And it's like, imagine like they've been getting a lot of new customers online, and they're like, we can now see his exact words were, I can look him in the eyes and know if he's honest. And I was like, that is so, like, because we think about that from our suppliers, like I hope they don't scam me or whatever, right? But the suppliers also thinking that from us, because think of all the people which have like placed a deposit on an order, then cancelled it, or say like, yeah, give me credit, and they build up $400,000 worth of credit, and then they say like, oh, sorry, I'm bankrupt, I can't pay you. Like that happens a lot to suppliers as well. So it's very, very important for them to know who we are, and it's very important for us to know about them as well. And there's no better way to do it than like meeting them in person and face to face, and that relationship aspect of it is very, very important. And then aside from that as well, like not only will you find a top supplier there if you're looking for a new one, but you'll also find your backup suppliers as well. Like you'll find another 2, 3, 4 suppliers which are just as good as the existing one, but you've now met them face to face, communicated, exchanged business cards, whatever, exchanged samples. And then like if anything goes wrong with your existing supplier, then you've got 3 or 4 backups that you've already established a really, really good relationship with as well. The other thing as well is that like they take you very, very seriously as a buyer when you're there in person, right? So for example, when you're sourcing online, right, they don't necessarily like know who you are, in terms of like you could be a 16-year-old in high school just sort of thinking about doing some sort of online thing because you saw an advertisement on TikTok, right? Whereas when they see you in person in real life, like you're not going to China on a holiday, you're going there to do business, and you're serious about doing business. And you've obviously incurred a certain expense for your flights and hotels and time out of the office to go to this trade show. That means you're there to place orders, you're there to do business. Whereas like a lot of the inquiries that come online are more so, I'm thinking about doing this brand, I'm thinking about doing, but there you're actually doing it, if you know what I mean. So that's why like your inquiries now go to the top of the pile, and they treat you a little bit more seriously as well. So there's a lot of benefits that we can get from going to the Canton Fair. Now, let's talk about the cost saving, right? In terms of you align with the top manufacturers, because the biggest and best manufacturers are there at the Canton Fair. Traditionally, a lot of these big suppliers didn't list their products on Alibaba.com because the biggest buyers for brands and licenses and retail stores were all visiting this show to do their business. So they didn't feel the need to list their products on websites like Alibaba because their production lines were already full, because they're already very good suppliers. Now, like you're now benefiting from accessing the top suppliers. The small suppliers who are little trading companies and stuff like that are not going there, if you know what I mean. And it's also too expensive for them as well. So you're now getting access to the top suppliers by going there. And as a result, you're also getting the better prices, as I said, by them taking you more seriously, by you being able to shop around. If you're looking for a particular water bottle, you can now go and have that conversation about developing your water bottle with the next 5-10 companies all down that row. So they can't just give you a rubbish price, because they know the next booth will give them the real price, right? So you're now in an environment where you can get the best results as well. And then think about like, how many times have you like ordered a sample and it's not been right first time, right? It's happened to all of us.
Billion times.
Right. So imagine like you have an inquiry, like you make a specification sheet, you send it to a supplier, they make you a sample. It takes like 2 weeks to make a sample, it takes like a week to send a sample. 3 weeks has passed, you get a sample, like it's not right. This is the wrong color, this is the wrong size, the thickness isn't good enough, whatever. So you make those changes again on a little document, they remake the sample, they send it to you again, another 3 weeks. So my point is that like 2-3 months can go by to sort of perfect a sample. Whereas when you're there in the fair, you can actually feel the products and be like, right, that material is correct, but I need it to be like 10 centimeters longer. And right, this product is perfect as it is, but just add a waterproof coating. Whatever it may be, you can make those alterations to existing products right there and then at the fair. And typically they will fast track your samples by you being at the fair, because they'll pick up the phone to the factory and they'll say, make the sample real quick, send it to this guy's hotel or wherever you are in China. So I often leave China with all my prices negotiated and my samples developed, whereas I'm still capable of doing that online, but it would take me maybe 2 or 3 months more, and it might not be as cost effective as it would have been going to the fair. So I feel that like anyone who goes to the Canton Fair, you have such an advantage, whether you're a beginner, you know, just with one product, or if you're a brand, if you have maybe multiple brands and multiple SKUs, then you have more to benefit. But I always used to think of like, you know, how I make content about sourcing and supply chain. I used to think of it as like beginner, intermediate, and advanced, depending on what level you are. But now it's just, you do it right or you don't do it at all. And
100%.
like this is the place to do it right, if you know what I mean. This is a place where like you'll find the best suppliers, you'll get the best prices, you'll get speed to market, you'll see all the new products, because while we develop products, so do the suppliers as well, right? They are working on new stuff, but they're not going to put that stuff online for everyone to see, but they'll have it there at the fair. And it might not be front and center, they might have it in the back, but after you've had a nice little conversation with them, then they'll show it to you. It was actually quite funny, right? Because I was going through like the editing of this YouTube video that I'm posting on the Canton Fair. And there was one scene where like I went into a supplier's booth. I'd never met him before. And I was just bantering with him for 2 minutes, right? And I was thinking, do I include this scene or not? And I was like, actually, yeah, I'll put it in, because it's important to show the sort of back and forth, like us getting to know each other. And then I was like, hey, how's it going? What's your name? I'm Kian. And he's like, oh, I'm Louis. I'm like, Louis or Lewis? He's like, Louis. I was like, oh, cool, Louis. I was like, where'd you get that name from? And he goes, Brazil. I was like, oh, Brazil, you like football? He's like, yeah. I was like, you like Neymar? You're like Ronaldo? He's like, oh, I like Neymar. And then I was like, I'm guessing you got that name Louis because you went to Brazil on a business trip. You really liked it. You fell in love with the country, and then Louis was your adopted name, and Louis was born from that day. And he goes, yeah, 100%. And then we kind of shook hands, had a laugh, and I'm like, we've just become friends in like 1 minute. And I was like, oh, Louis, can you show me your products? And then he had these cool like office supplies. But if I just went in and I was like, hey, Louis, can you show me like, you know, your office supplies? It's like we now are friends, if you know what I mean, right? So that makes such a big difference just to your business conversation, just by creating that initial 30-40 second rapport. But that's not really possible online. It's just not. So it's that type of stuff, the intangibles, that if you were looking at a spreadsheet to be like, right, how much extra margin did I make by going on this China trip? Those are the things that you can't put on the spreadsheet, but are so important, if you know what I mean.
Wow, so many questions came into, so many things came into my head while you were talking. I don't know where to start. Okay, I'll talk about just before what you just said, when you talked about samples. I think you were just talking about like the amount of time. Because here's the thing. Going to China, first of all, it's not, it's hard for a lot of people. For me, for example, you know, I've got a 6-year-old. I told you we're in the middle of building a house, etc. There's commitments. The people that do it, it's not that like they're less or more serious. It's just that it takes time and it takes money, etc. It's also scary for some people. You know, I've spoken to some people and they're like, I don't really want to go to China on my own, which is why, you know, China trips like what you have exist. But in general, it also costs a lot of money. And you were just saying, yeah, but think about, like, you can't put on paper how much money it actually saves you in the long term. And I just want to bring it back to putting money, because, you know, time is money, putting money on the side and talking about time. Before we hopped on the call, we spoke and I showed you a product, which I can't show. Do you remember the one where I told you where we went to? So it's a product that's made out of PVC, and the one with PVC. The handle, a cute handle. No, it's a different product. Right. The cute handle, it is made out of PVC.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, a different product. And then I told you that we were working with one type of supplier. It's like a handle type of supplier. And when we went to a toy supplier, he was like, I have a better way to make this. And he made it by putting 3 pieces together, which the person that we were working on didn't even think about that. We were working for, I think, about a year on that product. Took us a year until, with like 9 or 10 different suppliers going back and forth. And each time a sample's coming to me, a sample's going to, we probably could have done that all in less than a month if we were in China. And it was just me. I was just thinking about, not only that, there are many, I wish I could think of an example. I'm going to take, do you know what I'm going to take? I'm going to take a handle of a pot and pan as an example. You know how some handles, they've got silicone handles? Do you get what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It could be made out of silicone. It could be made out of PVC. There's many different types of suppliers. Also, I'm guessing that walking through the Canton Fair, you can find many different types of supplier, whether it's a toy factory or whether, you know what I mean, a plastic factory, etc. So the thing about the samples, that's number one. Number two, as you were talking about the rapport that number one, I also think that that's part of also who Kian is. You're such a friendly person. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably those people that would be way too embarrassed to do that. But I think that that's just so important, because this is something that ever since I've met you, you've always, this is something that you've never changed on this. You've always said this. Relationships and business in China is the most important thing. you know, you've spoken about how like there's a supplier that asked you to name their child and things like that. How important is that? This is still related to the Canton Fair, but how important is that then when it comes to once you do get to the stage when you put in an order, for example, on price, on putting your order before everyone else and things like that?
Yeah, honestly, it's everything, because like you said, the suppliers that I've got good friendships with, that they ask me to name their child, or some of them have come to visit me like in the UK, we've gone on holiday together and all that sort of stuff. They're not thinking like, oh, I want to squeeze this guy for like as much margin as I can. They're like, they want to see me win because we're friends, right? And they're thinking about business in like decades, not in like this order, if you know what I mean. So and I, as you said, it's not only price as well, but like if I have messaged one of them to be like, can you do me a solid, and I'm really late with delivery on this product, like, can you put my item to the front of the production to the production line, because like I'm running out of stock here and I don't want to run out. They're like, cool. Like they would actually move another brand off the production line to put mine ahead because we're that close, if you know what I mean. And that's something that builds up over time as well. There's some suppliers that I used to work with 4 or 5 years ago that for whatever reason we don't work together anymore, but we're still very good friends. And every time I see them at a fair, we go out for dinner together, we have a laugh, and we just maintain that relationship. And there's no like expectation for me to place orders or for them, but we're just friends first, if you know what I mean. And I've got hundreds of those like relationships, right? They've just been built up over time. And that is where, and sometimes it's not always like the current business that you're in right now, but fast forward 3 or 4 years time, there might be an opportunity for you guys to work together in a different capacity. So it's very, very important to build those relationships. And it's not even like, there's not even like a trick to it. It's just go in and be a nice person and talk, and you'll have amazing benefits that will arrive in your business as a result of it.
Awesome. What was different about the last Canton Fair in April, and what do you expect to also follow-up question, I'm saying it in advance, will be different for the one coming in October that we're making this for?
It was interesting, right? So I've been to the Canton Fair since November 1st, 2010 was my first one, right? And generally the Canton Fair has not changed that much. It's been the same every year. But this was the first time that I'd noticed a change. And a big thing was that Canton Fair has got halls A, B, and C. This time they've added a hall D, so they've expanded it by 25%. And they haven't filled it all the way, but they added in a lot more space in there as well, therefore being able to invite more suppliers to come in as well. They've also added a few new categories of product as well, and they've also shifted a few different categories. So I've got the updated sheet in front of me. So just to summarize, you've got phase 1, 2, and 3. For the majority of listeners checking this out, you're probably just concerned with phase 2 and 3 because most of the products that you sell online are going to be phase 2 and 3. So phase 2 is October 23rd to 27th. And then phase 3 is October 31st to the 4th of November. And in phase 2, you can expect to see like furniture, kitchenware, tableware, general ceramics, household items, clocks, watches, optical, gifts, premium, festival products, home decoration, art, ceramics, glass, gardening, all that sort of stuff. Phase 3, you can see a lot of medicine, pet products, children's, baby, beauty products, toys, kids wear, apparel, sports, casual wear, fashion, home textiles, because there's a little bit of crossover as well. Then you got like shoes, office supplies. And when I say shoes, like there's a whole floor of shoes. And in that floor, you've got like 4 halls. In those halls, you've got several floors. Like it's like, you're talking thousands of suppliers. So if you're looking at like dress shoes or sports shoes or like fashion shoes, like, I mean, it's everything. And then you've got like office supplies, food, sport, travel, and my favorite, bags. And bags is like a few different halls as well. Yeah, whether it's like sport bags, fashion bags, travel bags, outdoor bags, it's all there. So yeah, you've got such a wide different variety. And what I'll do, Sharon, is I'll send you this updated list so you can put it in the show notes or links in the description and anything like that. And yeah, as you mentioned, if anyone needs any help or support with a trip like this, we do run a trip called China Magic, where you can check out ChinaMagicTrip.com and come as a group as well, where I'll be helping out and mentoring people along the way. And then we have like masterminds in the evening as well, predominantly for Amazon sellers.
How do you in China, what does it look like specifically? Let's just say if I want to come to China, your China trip, obviously because of you. What does it look like? Like, how do you help people there?
Yeah, so wide variety. So a lot of people might have like a new product that they want to launch, or they have a very good product that's going already, but they just want a little bit better quality. They might start to notice a few different negative reviews, or their business is going absolutely fine, but they just want backup suppliers, or they want better prices than what they're getting right now. I always say, because a lot of people are like, oh, cool, I'm going to go to the Canton Fair. And I always ask, what's your objective? Before any China trip, it's very, very important to have a list of objectives for that trip, whether you're going to the fair or just a China trip in general. And I always have a list of like, right, here's the top 15 things I need to achieve on this trip. So if you're like trying to launch, if you've got maybe 3 brands and you're trying to launch 3 new products for each brand, you're like, right, here's the 9 new products I need to launch. Here's an idea of what I want to launch. But I'm also going to leave a bit of space open for, I want to see what new products have been developed as well. And I want to see what they've been working on. And you can say like, okay, here's my top 10 best-selling items, and I want to get better prices on all of them. Or here's the breadwinner for like my brand. Here's the one which is bringing in the most revenue. I want to get better credit terms on this. I don't want to be paying 30% deposits anymore. I want no deposit up front. I want 50% payment when the goods ship, and I want 50% remaining balance after 60 days. Like, those are the types of things that with the people which come on the trip, that they'll just share, right, here's my objectives, and I'll go with them to the fair in the booth. And then sometimes I'll just say like, I'm the buying manager, like I work for so and so, and then I'll just sort of I'll show you how to do it if you want to like discuss yourself, or I'll just do it for you on your behalf. And then like we achieve a lot of really good results, whether even like last fair, like we saw someone who saw a brand new product. They're like, I want that, I want to order that, but I've never seen that before. And we managed to negotiate like an exclusivity agreement so that no one else was able to order that product, and we had exclusive rights for the US market. Another like good win that we had, so a friend of mine had a product in like the homeware space, and he's selling good volume, like 400,000 units a year, and I managed to get him a better quality supplier with more certification, which supplies the market leader, and we managed to get him $1 off his unit cost. And then he went to visit the factory as well while on the trip as well. And so over the course of a year, that's a $400,000 saving. So it depends on but also if you're a beginner, would you not rather launch a product at the best price, at the best quality from the best supplier, rather than trying to just launch a general product and then optimize that stuff later on? And a lot of people think like, hey, the profit in my business comes from the margin I make when I sell the product, but it's really the profit also comes in the buying price as well. Like if I'm buying something for $10, but I could have bought it for $8, well, that's an additional $2 per unit that I've saved, which I can now put into extra PPC or hiring new people or launching another product. So it's very, very important to be buying the product at the correct price. So no matter what the goal and the objective, like we achieve that in the fair together. And then in the evenings, we do like sort of mastermind content as well. I've got presentations prepared. We also do a bunch of Q&A. And then we also do like one-on-ones and stuff with samples, and work on developing products as well. So really, really exciting, fun times, and highly recommend anyone to join, which would be ChinaMagicTrip.com.
Awesome. I had a question as you were speaking. So we were speaking a lot about saving time. We're speaking about building relationships. I think beyond that, also one more thing is the variety of suppliers, so that people can understand. Let's just pretend that I want to source glasses. Okay, I know that you're working on some sort of glasses project, so I'm going to use glasses. You're awesome. If someone's listening to this on the podcast and they're not seeing Kian, you have to find this on my YouTube channel and you have to see Kian, because he's got this new thing now with his really awesome glasses. Anyway, let's pretend that we want to source glasses, right? And so what phase would that be? 2? 3?
I think 3.
3? Okay, let's just say that was phase 3. Can you just explain to people on a ballpark, how many glasses suppliers do you think would be there? Hundreds? Thousands?
Over hundreds, yeah.
Over hundreds. So that people understand it's not only time, etc. It's also the variety of suppliers, right? There's a huge variety of suppliers. Can you tell us a little bit about how do you approach that?
Well, the thing is, like, I think for anyone trying to source a product, they might be like, okay, I want to source glasses, but I actually don't know too much about glasses. I know I like them. I know I want to source them. I know I want to add them to my brand, but I don't know like what the price should be, and I don't know what type of frame or lens I should have. This is why the fair is so good, because like I would sort of walk down the lanes and be like, right, okay, those 5 companies look really good. I'm going to come back to them. Right, these 5 companies, for whatever reason, I don't like them. I think they're a bit untidy and it doesn't look like they have many products on offer. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to warm up, right? So I would kind of go in there with the goal to learn more about the product. So I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking about ordering these glasses, but I'm curious, like, do you supply any of this to North America? And they're like, yeah, we have a couple of customers in North America. I was like, cool. Out of interest, like, what certification do they require on the glasses for North America? They're like, you know what? Sunglasses doesn't really need much certification, but for California, they're very strict on the rays, so we have to have this thing on the lens. I was like, oh, cool. What's that called? That's EN 1072. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, what about like the packaging? What do you offer? Like, oh, we got these like wooden boxes and we got this like magnetic closure. I was like, oh, what's the cost difference between the magnetic and the wooden box? Well, the magnetic is really, really popular and it's even $1 cheaper as well. I'm like, oh, cool, good information. So I'm just sort of building up as much knowledge as I can just by talking to the suppliers I don't necessarily want to work with. Then when I go into those like
Go
top
back to your
5 groups,
5.
yeah. And I'm like, hey, Roddy, how's it going? Yeah, hope you're well. Yeah. So I'm looking at importing these glasses, but it's really, really important that we've got the EN 1072 for California because North America is a big market for us. They're like, oh shit. Like, okay, this guy really knows this stuff. And it's like,
But you only learned it like 5 minutes ago.
exactly. I just learned it from his mate, like down the road. So it's like, it's things like that that you can really, really learn about the product and then apply that knowledge in real time to one, develop better products and gain your manufacturer's respect. And if you go in with that line and they know that you know about the product, they're not going to mess you around on price because they know that you know what is the real cost of these products, right? So I always use the fair to educate myself on whatever product category that I'm getting into, but it gives us it allows us to do that, right? Because there's so many different suppliers that we can talk to. And I quite often like go to supplier and ask my questions and stuff like that. And I say like, hey, can I just grab a sample off you and I'll bring it back tomorrow, but I just want to test it out tonight at the hotel and things like that. And then I'll go, but I'll use it and test it that night and I'll do my research online in terms of how I can sell it and, you know, things like that, what partners I have and things like that. And then you can go back the next day, like, hey, do you mind if we go for a coffee real quick? We'll just step out of the booth and like we'll just go and chat about life and family and, you know, goals and all that sort of stuff. And I was just like, look, this is my strategy. This is my plan for this particular product. I've got these types of influencers. Here's their profile, like really, really large following. And this is going to grow to a really large brand. And I'd like you to be involved in it and things like that. Just explaining the vision, right? Gets them a lot more bought into the project, if you know what I mean. And it just means that you'll get much, much better service from them. So it allows us to do that back and forth and meet each other on consecutive days and go for coffee and things like that. So that's why it's so, so important. And we just became an expert on like sunglasses as well when we didn't have any knowledge before.
I have another question to do with that, because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, or at least hundreds of suppliers for one particular product. I'm going to change it for a second to soft toys. Okay, let's pretend that I'm developing a soft toy and I've come and I don't know, there's 300-400 suppliers or even 100, even 100's a lot. How do you know, like, how do you decide who, because you can't go to every single booth. Like, how do you decide who you go into? How does how does your brain work? You're walking down, what are you looking for?
Cool. Yeah, here's the real sauce. So basically, you know, we have all these like certifications and accreditations like SEDEX, ISO, BSCI. Some people have got Walmart audit, Disney audit, all that sort of stuff. Now, the smart factories, what they do is they have a little like tag or banner or whatever, and they say we have this audit, we have that audit, we have this audit. And I'm like, cool, any factory which has this type of audit means that they have big customers, and for them to have big customers, it means that they've engineered the product down to a really low cost because they've got scale and they've got volume, and as a result they must have good raw material suppliers and all this sort of stuff. So as soon as I see that they have any certification, like visually, I'm interested, but I don't just take their word for it. I go in and I quiz them about it as well. So that's like the first thing. The other thing as well is that like you can get I always keep an eye out for what I think looks like new products as well, because then it shows that the supplier has an eye for innovation as well. But if I see them with the same products that they've had for the last 10 years, I'm not going to learn much from that supplier. Maybe they can make exactly what I want them to make, but they're not going to be like, because I learn a lot from my suppliers as well. Like while we develop products, so do our suppliers. And as we talked about building up those partnerships and relationships, I get suppliers like calling me up to be like, hey Kian, I'm just developing this product for this like customer in Japan. It looks really cool. It's becoming very popular. I think you should try it out as well. So those are the types of suppliers that I like to work with, in terms of that they're very forthcoming with new ideas and things like that as well. And then apart from that, you can't really judge a book by its cover, because I've seen booths which are like really tidy, really well organized. All the shelves are packed like really well. They have like 10 different agents walking around in suits and stuff like that. But then maybe it's just a massive trading company and not necessarily a reputable factory. And then on the flip side, I've seen factories where like they just have a few products on display. It's a really small booth. The products are not steamed or ironed or whatever, and the factory boss is sitting in his chair and he's asleep, right? And or he's not even there, it's just empty. And those are some of the biggest factories in the world, because like I've worked with some of them, and I go up to them, I'm like, why are you not like displaying your products? Like why are you like half asleep here and things like that? And it's like they're not there at the Canton Fair to find new customers. They're there to talk to their existing clients, which are really big. And so for that reason, they just take a really small booth and they just use that to host like meetings and stuff. And then the ones maybe which are really clean and tidy and organized are the ones which are desperate for orders, if you know what I mean. So they're trying to look really sharp. Whereas like, I think a normal person walking down the hall would just dismiss a supplier which had an untidy booth that was really small and the guy was asleep. Whereas that's actually the biggest factory boss for that particular category of product. And that I'm generalizing here, but you might actually find someone like that, which is a really bad supplier. But my point is that you don't know until you go in and you ask and you're like, who do you work with? What markets do you supply? What certifications do you have? How many years have you been in business? And you can literally just get a feel for that conversation like immediately. And that's just like the best thing, just to talk to as many suppliers as you can. And then after a while you get a feel for it. Like I swear I've got like a sixth sense that when I walk down I know everything about the company, but just because I've been doing it for like 13-14 years, right? But it's you pick it up.
Someone like me fully understands what you're talking about. It's because like how I say I have a sixth sense. I just know if a product's going to work or not, and sometimes I don't have analytical answers for why. I just know it. So I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to that sixth sense. I know that you have to go. I do have one more last question.
I can stay for a little bit. And I actually want to give you a funny example of one. You just reminded me, right? Like maybe 5 years ago, I was doing bags for like the Ministry of Defense. So these are like your highest technical army bags, like really like best materials, best quality of stitching, all that sort of stuff. Infrared reduction technology in the fabrics, like top bags, right? And me and the factory boss, really good friends, done business together for a long time, all this sort of stuff. So I'm walking down the Canton Fair, right? And I see his booth and I'm expecting to see like some military bags. But what did I see? Like it was these like little kids' school backpacks, right? Like these little sort of $2 with like cartoon characters on them. And I walk and that's all his booth has got. And I'm like, what? Like, why on earth are you showing these? I was like, why are you showing these kids' bags? I was like, you're capable of doing much better products than this. And he's like, yeah, I know, but like kids' bags are our biggest seller. Like we supply all the biggest like retail stores in South America and the US, and their volumes are like 100,000 pieces per order. So like just school bags is our like bread and butter moneymaker, high volume, all that sort of stuff. So okay, cool. Like, good for me for you to not show the products that we worked on together. But my point is that you would walk past that and be like, oh, that's a school bag supplier. But like you don't know what they're capable of until you actually go in and talk to them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know that. I totally get what you're saying. So let's just say in that case, so when I go into a booth, what you're saying is something else that's important to ask is what other products do you have, right? For example.
So yeah, that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought it up. I would ask, what are your core products and what are the products that you specialize in? Because a lot of factories can do different stuff. For example, in that YouTube video I talked about, one of the suppliers I went to see, his main products that he does is microfiber towels, but he also had like outdoor furniture chairs, and he had like a little wetsuit and little bags, because all these products are cut and sew, because his workers in the factory are very skilled workers and they can do anything which is like fabrics, cut and sew. But towels is by far his best product, and he does it for the biggest brands in the world. I actually did the NBA towels with him. Now, if you walk past that booth, I wouldn't know what he specializes in. I can see chairs, I can see bags, I can see a wetsuit, and I can see towels. And I'm like, I don't know like what you do, what your core strengths are. But if I go in and I just ask him like, what is the product that you really, really specialize in? He's like, no one can beat us on towels. I'm like, cool. All right, let's talk about the towels. So you have to kind of ask those questions as well, rather than just assuming that they're a master at all these products.
What are some important tips that you can give our listeners when it comes to preparing for the Canton Fair? And I'm not asking you the same type of questions that I asked earlier. If anyone wants to like ask, you know, to understand more in depth on things like, you know, where to stay and things like that, you can find our video that Kian and I did. I think it was in April when we put it out. What I'm talking about here is, you know, what's important to prepare before going to the Canton Fair, things like knowing about the product, spec sheets, things like that, not about China specifically and where to stay.
Yeah, sure. So I would say, like I talked a little bit before, is like to have a plan for your trip in terms of what are the key outcomes that you want to achieve while you're here. And the other cool thing is as well is that, you know, you talked about like going to China can be expensive and all that. You have to pay for flights and hotels and it's time out of the office and all that sort of stuff. I always want, my goal is always that the China trip that I go on has to 10x pay for itself. Meaning, let's say that I've spent $5,000 to go to China, right? I have to, as a result, make at least $50,000 saving or benefit from coming to this trip. So like, if you, let's say you have like one product and it's like $50 and you can save like 10% on your cost of goods, and you can save $5 and you can do 1,000 units, you know what I mean? Like, or 100 units. So, you know, okay, I've just saved like $5,000 by getting a 10% saving on this particular item. So I would always have a plan and a goal for myself to be like, right, how can I make the money back from this trip so the trip is more than paid for itself? But on top of that as well, in terms of like spec sheets and things. So before going, I would prepare my specification sheet. So let's say you've got like 2 or 3 brands, and you're doing like several different products under those brands. I would create a specification sheet, find my top 5 suppliers on Alibaba.com, and I would send them the spec sheet and say like, okay, what's the best price I can get on these products? And let's just take one product, for example. Let's say the best price we can get is $8.50. So I'm going to the fair knowing that for this particular product, which I'll have a sample with me so that when I go and talk to the suppliers, I can show them my product, because it's much better for them to understand it when they can touch and feel and see the materials. And then I would say, like, what would be the best price you can give me for this product? My order volume is roughly 5,000 pieces per year. And if they say, yeah, roughly, we could probably do this for like $7.90 or $8, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, fantastic, great. I've just saved 50 cents from what I could have got online. Over the course of 5,000 units, that's a $2,500 saving. Great, done. And then I was like, can you prepare a sample for me of this product? And then if the sample is fine, then I will place my next order with you. And then let's say we can do that across multiple products, but we have to know how much grounds we have to negotiate, right? Because if we didn't know what was our online price and he said the best price I can give you is like $7.90, then I don't know if I should accept that price or if I should negotiate it further. I mean, of course, I can negotiate with other people there at the Canton Fair and I can use that to find out what's the best price. But if you want a bit of a head start, you can do a bit of online research, and any information that you can share about your company in terms of how many years you've been in operation, how many products you've launched, how many staff employees you have in your company, what was your annual turnover, have you ever sold a brand before, have you ever worked in a brand and you were responsible for product launches but now you've started your own brand, get them excited to work with you. So you have to, like, I'll give you a quick example, right? So luckily Chinese people love basketball, right? I think basketball and ping pong are the 2 most popular sports. Every factory's got a basketball court outside. Every high school's got basketball courts. So Chinese people love basketballs. And what's funny is that they have, their name is like a Chinese name, but when they give themselves an English name, because a lot of them love basketball, they give themselves a player of the name of their favorite basketball player. So for example, I hear some guys, I'm like, hey, what's your name? They're like, oh, I'm Kobe. I'm like, oh, Kobe. Hey, no, man, you like basketball? And one guy's like, hey, I'm Shaquille. I was like, you don't look like a Shaquille, but cool. I think it's a nice name. But because I've worked with the NBA and I've worked with the players and stuff like that, I was like, oh, Kobe, let me show you something. And I would like show photos on my phone with like me and like Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or other players. They're like, no way, how'd you know them? I was like, oh, I worked with them. I did merchandise for the NBA and I launched brands for some of the players and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, if you ever come to LA, wherever, like, I'm sure we can hang out and hopefully we can go to a game together and all this. And they're like, no way. And they're like, they're now so excited, but basketball was our connection, right? But those are the types of things that we can apply and we can use just by like finding out what they're interested in. But that was me just sharing information, if you know what I mean. So whether it is like how many workers you have in your company, that might really excite them. Whether it be which brands or which markets you're into, like great, that might really excite them. But the more information we can share about ourselves, because they don't know if you're, been in this business for 1 year or 25 years. So I want to share with them things that gets them excited to work with me. So I'm going to get their best service. Like I want to leave that meeting being a customer that they want to acquire, meaning like I want them to think, no matter what it takes, I want to work with that guy.
I want to work with him. Yeah.
Like that's my goal, right? And for that reason, they'll quite often do like the first order as like a loss leader or like a break even, that like they will give you the best price and the best terms and fast delivery date and all that sort of stuff, because they want you in as a customer, because they know the value you will bring over the next like 3, 5, 10 years. So, but we can't really do that unless we state our leverage. So you have to come up with what is your core values, what is it you bring to the table, and then let's get them excited.
I thought of a question while you were saying that. I usually ask you, so what are things that we need to prepare when we are speaking with the suppliers, and what are things that we need to ask them? What are things that suppliers are usually asking you at the Canton Fair? Now, I know that you're Kian, so like you're a bad example because you're like the sourcing king, but what could a typical person that goes to the Canton Fair expect and have prepared, apart from what you just mentioned? Because I'm sure that like, are those typical questions? Like, can I expect a supplier to come and say, so how many workers do you have? How many, are those typical questions? What are usually questions that they would ask face to face?
Like, to be frank, they want to know how big you are as a company, because essentially they just want to know how many orders you're going to place and how much money they're going to make, right? To put it frankly. So they will, the first thing they'll probably ask you is, which market are you supplying? And you're like, US. All right, tick, right? That's the biggest one. And then it's like, right, do you have any stores? Like, no, I just sell online. It's like, where'd you sell? Amazon. Oh, cool. It's like, how long have you been selling on Amazon? Like 3 years, 5 years. Cool. And then like, you don't have to share, like, remember, like you're deciding which supplier to work with because you've got 100 suppliers to go through. But quite often they'll just ask questions because they're interested, because they want to gain more information. By the way, the business card is a really big play here, because like they cherish the business card, and that's kind of like the symbol of like, we're now connected, we're now doing business together, and like they will look you up, right? So whatever you put on your business card in terms of like your website and stuff like that, like they will like look at your company website and things. So it's important, like to your point, like if you have a good story, or if you have like some assets, like share that. But if not, they're just going to be asking about like, how big is your company, and like which markets do you supply, and how many products are you doing, and things like that. But quite often we're the ones which ask the questions. And if there's ever anything that you don't feel comfortable like answering, you don't have to. And like, I would never lie. Like I would never, if I'm a beginner, I would never say that like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for 10 years, because they'll find you out pretty quickly. And if they find out you've been lying, then the trust is gone. And trust is probably the most important thing, like for your relationship. And there have been plenty of times where I've like done a product for the first time, which I'm very inexperienced in, and I tell them like my experience in other areas, but I'm like, it's the first time I'm doing this, and I just really want a reliable partner, and I really want to grow this together for the long term, so it can be win-win. And I really like you, and I really want to grow in partnership with you, and I look forward to visiting your factory, and I look forward to us really growing this together. That's what gets them excited, not like a lie of like, hey, I do 20 containers a month, but for you, I'm just going to do 500 pieces as a trial, and we'll see where we can get to it. And I'll let you know. That's what the idiot buyers do, and they get found out pretty quickly, and then the relationship is really tarnished.
What if you are a newbie and this is your first? So I'm just like, I have a client in my mind, right, where I know that they were thinking about going to the Canton, and we're working together on 3 products, right? But this is his first brand. So even though we're working on 3 products, this is his first brand. If he now was to be at the Canton Fair and a supplier was to ask him, tell us a little bit about you, it could be a little bit scary to tell a supplier, well, I'm new. So like, how should newbies handle that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's always going to be like newbies as well. So I think, like we said, just to be honest, but just to share your vision, because like, let's say, for example, I've never done this before. I'm going to the Canton Fair for the first time, and I want to start a yoga brand, right? And there's loads of other yoga products out there. Like, why am I going to be the one which will be successful? I would share things like, hey, this is my first time at this show, super excited, and I look forward to visiting your factory in the future. I've always got great new product ideas and I'm excited to launch them and bring them to life. I'm really passionate about yoga. I've been a yoga teacher for 5 years. I've got my own studio. So I'm always very hands-on with the products and I'm always like getting new ideas. So I look forward to launching them. I'm also friends with a lot of the biggest influencers in the yoga space. So even though I'm launching my first business, I've got a lot of people with big audiences which are willing to promote the products for me. So it's going to be a variety of sending traffic to my online store, plus selling it on Amazon as well. So I'm really excited about how fast we can grow the business together. And like, let's say you don't have any influencers on board, like just go online the night before and find like 4 or 5, and you can even DM them and say like, hey, I'm working on this yoga product. I would love to send you a sample. And then you're now connected with those people, if you know what I mean. And I would tell the suppliers, like, these are the types of people that I'm in discussions with to launch and promote the product. So it's really easy to build leverage to get them excited to work with you, even if you're an absolute beginner doing it for day one.
That's a great tip. I love that. Damn it, there was a question that was like on the tip of my tongue and I forgot it. But I will ask 2 more things before we go. So what is the number 1 tip that you would give to someone who's going this October, this Canton Fair? Number 1 tip, if maximum 2, but what's the number 1 tip that you would give someone?
This one's a little bit far out and it sounds like counterproductive, but honestly, I would just say have fun. Like, and that sounds weird, but like the Canton Fair does not feel like work to me whatsoever. I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. And it's just keeping an eye out for new products. It's meeting new people. It's like understanding how people do business. It's making new friends. And like, it's just fun. And it's like, you've already put yourself in an environment where you're going to get the best results. And I think if you overthink it and be like, I have to say this, and I have to launch this product, and I have to get this price, like, it's going to happen naturally, right? Because like, you're there in the place to get the best results where you have the best suppliers. And once you have enough, like, like, for example, if you go to the gym for 100 days in a row, you're going to get strong. Like, it's science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're not going to screw it up. Like, and it's the same for Canton Fair. Like, if the more suppliers you talk to, the more you learn about how to communicate, and the more you learn about developing products. And of course, like, if you come on a China Magic trip, like, I'm there with you as well, so you're going to like fast track your learning and your growth. So like, I wouldn't put pressure on yourself. Just go there with your goals in mind, and just have a good attitude and have fun with it, and you'll achieve amazing things.
And then this is going to be my last question, and then we're going to do a really quick recap. Would someone going to the Canton Fair then should they expect to also, or plan to also, let's just say, I don't know, they've come up to their top 3 suppliers, all right, whatever, they spoke to, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, hundreds, whatever, but they've got their top 3 or top 4 suppliers. Should people expect to also go to the factories?
Yeah, so I would recommend it. If you've got a factory you're already working with right now and everything's going well and everything's smooth, I would make a plan to visit them. Every China trip I go to, I always leave like at least like 3 or 4 days free. And 3 or 4 days is a lot because I'm expected to see like maybe 5 or 6 suppliers in that time. But let's just say you've got one product, then always leave like 1 day free for leaving room to visit a supplier that you meet at the fair, because you never know the types of suppliers that you're going to meet while you're there. It might be a new product or it might be a new supplier, and I always would go and check them out as well if I'm serious about placing a large order. If it's just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to try this out, like, it's not as important to visit the factory. But if you've got an established business that's doing really well and you've been working with a factory for like 3 or 4 years, then definitely I would want to go visit their place of business, because honestly, like, you never really know who you're working with until you actually go there. Like, factories change a lot in terms of they get better, they get more technical workers, so they add new product lines, or sometimes it can get worse, like they can lose workers, they don't return after Chinese New Year. There's maybe like the boss has made a lot of money doing real estate, so he's lost interest in the factory. Like, things happen, like in the same way things happen in our businesses, things happen with these factories. So it's very important to visit regularly to know exactly like who you're dealing with and things like that. The good thing is, though, a lot of these factories are located next to each other. So if you're doing, like, when I do bags, like, I've got 20 bag factories within like a sort of 20-mile radius, if you know what I mean. They're all just tend to be close together. So you can go and see like 3 or 4 suppliers in one day. So I would make a plan to go and visit your existing factory, but then also leave room to go see a new one. And what's cool is that like what we've done differently on this China Magic trip, which we did on the previous one, but never did before that, was that in the 3 days between phase 2 and phase 3, we now use that time for everyone to go and visit their individual factories. Whereas before, in those 3 days, we used to go to Hong Kong and do the Global Sources show. But the biggest and best suppliers are there at the Canton Fair, and then those 3 days are really valuable to just go and then visit your actual manufacturer. So you get the fair and you get to visit your factory as well. And then it's really a complete trip. But I kind of see like sourcing from China is 3 different levels. Like level 1 is doing it online, level 2 is going to the Canton Fair, and level 3 is going to visit your factory. And there's all sorts of different benefits you can unlock from going to the factory as well. So I would highly recommend doing both if you can.
Amazing. So I want to give a really, really quick recap of some things, or go over some of the tips. Number one thing that you said was to always know what your objective is. So what do you want to get out of flying to the Canton Fair? Number 2, which we didn't say, but it's something that I know, and I think you also said it last time, is, well, you did say it in a different way. If you're going there, if you're someone who's already got a product in mind, or you already have your own brand, or whatever it may be, and you and I have spoken in general many, many times since COVID, since we've ever met, about how things have changed and how important it is to understand every single aspect of your sourcing and manufacturing, whereas back in the day, you didn't really need to know the processes and things like that. So I think the second thing is also to understand the product, right? To know that to sound like you know what you're talking about, but actually know what you're talking about. Specification sheets, we very briefly spoke about that, but we did also on the last one, make sure that you're coming with a spec sheet or a sample. You also said, which I thought was interesting, to also come with a sample of the actual product as well. And I was just thinking, as you were saying, that a benefit from that, just from my own experience, is also that maybe you've been manufacturing a product up to now in a certain way, and in the Canton Fair, a different supplier would see it and say, you know what, if you actually made it like this, it could be better. I was just thinking about that as well. Should you also expect to be leaving with samples?
Yeah, so like sometimes you'll see the sample there at the supplier's booth, which is exactly what you want, or you want to iterate a little bit on top of that. I would still walk away with your samples so that you can just further use and test it. And another thing that I forgot to mention was that I always go with my own samples if I'm looking to find a new supplier, and it's just easier if they touch and feel and see the product. But if I'm developing a product and I've never made this item before, I'll buy the competitor samples, and I would maybe have like 3 different samples, and I would say, here's everything I like about the sample, and here's everything I want to improve on the sample. And we have this conversation like with the sample in front of us, so they really understand. And actually, another thing I forgot to mention was that the way to get the best results when you're having these conversations is that we have to sit down at a table with a notepad, and if we're going through this product, like, here's everything that we want to improve on it, I'm taking notes, and also the supplier will be taking notes, so we both know what we just talked about. And then when I get back to my hotel that night, I'm going to summarize those notes by email, and I'm going to email it to you, and I'm going to ask you to confirm as well. Because what's happened in the past is that like I'll do a lot of improvements to our product, and then like I'll get the sample and I'm like, that's not what I said. Like there was a misunderstanding there, right? So as long as I've got a copy of what was written down and they've got it written down as well, we then summarize together and we go over, check, right? We've got 14 different points here and we're on the same page on everything. And then I'm going to summarize that by email, and I'm going to get them to confirm by email as well. That means there was nothing misunderstood, so that when they make that next sample, they know exactly what they're doing. But if you go in without taking any notes and you're like, you know what, right, make that product, make it waterproof, add it 10 centimeters to the side, add this pouch, and then, just send it to me in a week, here's my address, you're going to get a terrible product because like the proper notes weren't taken. So it's very, very important to have that dialogue as well.
How important is it for someone to have WeChat?
Very important. And WeChat is so important for like communication while you're there. WeChat sometimes can be a bit funny with like creating new accounts because they just think you're a bot. And I had my WeChat account cancelled or like banned for like 6 months, and I finally got it back on because what happened was that I was using a VPN because a lot of the like Instagram and all that sort of stuff is blocked in China. So I was using WeChat, but I was also using a VPN which said I was in the UK. So WeChat is thinking that I'm doing something sketchy by pretending I'm in the UK, so they just blocked my account. I was like, oh shit. So I initially I got it reinstated just by asking a few people who live in China to like authorize my account. You can just get them to scan your QR codes, and they're like, no, I vouch for this person, they're real, and then you get it back. But yeah, WeChat is really, really important for communication.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much. So the three, just to say what I was saying, know your objective, know what you're going for, know your products, understand your products. Kian gave a great tip where, if you've seen a good product, you don't know much about it, go to the shitty suppliers first. Not shitty, but the ones that you don't really want to work with. I take that back, not shitty. The ones that you know that you don't want to work with, ask those questions, learn more about the product, and then you can go back to, to then the good suppliers that you want to work with. That's a tip that you've always given. I think whether it's Canton or online, you always give that tip. It's a great tip because you then learn about the product, learn about the process, etc. Having WeChat's a good idea as well. We said having a specification sheet, and also not have your story together, but like you said, until you spoke about it, I'd never really thought about, I always think about, okay, what do I want to ask? I've never thought about, well, what they ask me? I know that I've known you for a while. We've done, I don't know, I'm probably the person you've done the most podcasts with, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely.
We've done like well over 20 together over the years, both as guests together and also as me hosting it. But something that you've always said from the very beginning is you've always spoken about relationship and trust. Trust always. You've always said that. It's a huge, huge thing. And I think maybe when we first met, I looked at things a little bit differently from my online, from someone who sources mostly online. And I think that's one of the most important things too, because you're consistently meeting face to face with Chinese suppliers, etc. Anyway, Ken, thank you so, so much. If someone wants to reach out to, well, before they want to reach out to you, if someone wants to, they hear this and they want to join your sourcing trip, where can they find information about the sourcing trip?
Yeah, for sure. So you can go to ChinaMagicTrip.com and you can see all the details there. And if you want to just click the button, you can jump on a call with someone who will answer a bunch of questions that you may have. In terms of staying in touch with me, I've got a YouTube channel, Sourcing with Kian, Facebook group of the same name, Instagram, Kian_JG. So hope to connect with you there. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the episode and look forward to seeing you in China.
That's so awesome, Kian. I really hope that next April I can come in and with you to China. I know it's so overdue. I really wanted to make it this time, but we're building a house and stuff. I've got too much shit going on, so I can't. But thank you. And every single time, I know you needed to go half an hour ago, but every single time you always give one more tip and one more tip. There's always these golden nuggets with you. So thank you so much for your time. If anyone wants to reach out to me, SharonEven.com or Sharon Even anywhere on social media. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks, Kian.
All right.
Bye,
all
everyone.